All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello again. I am Matt Davio, your host of the 1 Minute Trader podcast. And today I've got a very old friend and special guest from TradeIdeas. Dan Mirkin is the CEO and co-founder. We were just talking about this, Dan, before you came on, 2003. So you guys have been around almost 15 years at TradeIdeas. Welcome to the 1 Minute Trader podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Matt, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to, talk to an old friend and share what's going on at TradeIdeas with your audience.
So, we were talking a little bit before we started the podcast about you and I have similar philosophies when it comes to markets and business. And that is, we kind of both have a less is more philosophy. And we have more of a bent, not so much about, hey, we're going to, be billionaires, but it's more of a freedom or a liberty lifestyle that you and I both choose that this business has offered us. And one thing that you said to me, Dan, before coming on that I really want to, dive into, if people don't know who TradeIdeas is how we're really at the infancy, if you will, coming out of the trees, as you said, in this evolution of opening up the doors for so many people to have opportunities to participate in the greatest game available that will provide you with the same type of freedom and liberty in your lifestyle.
Well, as you said, Matt, there's so many few times in life where if you're kind of self-aware, you can get a chance to reflect. And our generation, I think, was a little bit lucky because, when we were growing up, all of a sudden computers kind of came to life, and we got to see the whole evolution of going from the disk drives to the hard disks and it's an amazing just kind of reflection back, going back to the big thick TVs. And, I was excited about getting a color one. That's how old I am. I mean, I'm 46, but again, when I was growing up, like color TV was cool. And now where we are, I mean, think about just like you take a quick jump forward and you understand all of a sudden that we are innovating at an exponential pace.
Right.
And what that means is that's an opportunity for people to gain the kind of wealth that, well, again, it doesn't come around often, certainly.
So it's funny, a couple things you just said, and I gotta tell you, Dan, I was talking to my oldest son who is he's around the corner from you. He goes to the University of San Diego.
Oh, great place.
And I went down for Game 6 of the LA-Houston World Series and took him up to Game 6. And I was describing to him how, soft, because he was downloading a new version of Adobe, Photoshop, because he's really good at editing and doing creative work.
Sure.
And I told him, gosh, I remember getting the new disk set for Windows 3, right? Or whatever it was. And how you literally had a stack of small 3.5-inch, the floppies, and you had to go disk 1, disk 2, disk 37, right? To update the software.
I remember that. I remember it well.
And what you're talking about now is, gosh, you don't even have software anymore. And that's not downloaded from the cloud, and that's almost automatic for you. You don't have to go out and find drivers and things like this that you and I had to do that were great, by the way. They were still fantastic, but it's moving at such a pace right now.
Well, imagine this. So it even goes deeper down the exciting rabbit hole of innovation. So if you think about, when I talk about now, and hopefully when I tell you this, it's going to give you more impetus to become a better referral partner. Number one, I believe that we are the fastest growing fintech subscription service in the US. Mm-hmm. No shit. It is. People are starting to get it. They're like, wait a minute, what am I seeing? And I'll give you an example right now. If you look at, pull up DRNA.
Okay.
Now, again, I don't know if you've turned on TradeIdeas recently, but if you have, you'll see that our AI, Holly, gave a signal to enter DRNA at 719 at an entry price of $8.57. And that's the kind of stuff that, whereas everybody might be chasing the CHFSs of the world, and we're getting a little bit more technical now, just talking about opportunity detection. But the bottom line is, RAI was modeled on. So here's some indicators for you that you might not have heard before. Serial killers.
So let me, before you get into it, artificial intelligence is what Dan is speaking of, for those that don't know. And I always say, Dan, you describe for me, what is artificial intelligence when it comes to the TradeIdeas platform?
Okay, so that's kind of what I'm getting into. We wanted to solve a problem of how do you automate speculation, okay, which is basically, let's talk about what is a trade? What is a speculation? What is that about? Well, you're allocating an asset for some time and you want that asset to appreciate fairly quickly. Right?
Or depreciate.
Depreciate, or well, to go in whichever direction you're going. But for simplicity's sake, yep. I'm just saying in this case, appreciate, right?
Absolutely.
Well, how do you know when that happens? So we asked ourselves, how does one know when an asset might or might not appreciate? And we looked at everything that was being done and we said, well, look at everything that's being done. All the fundamental data is already being looked at. And you can think about by who? Well, all the analysts, from the Citrons to all the slave labor at Goldman Sachs, when they take the people out of Harvard and torture them for 4 years so that those people then torture their children and send them to Harvard. You know how it works. Yeah. But it's a long story in the major, but that's what happens. So we're like, okay, well, certainly it can't be fundamental data. And then now that the old school Stephen Cohn way of doing it, where you know the information ahead of time, that game's over, because you can't do that anymore for the most part. So how do you fucking do it? So when we thought about that, and because, as you know, me being a judge at the Cannabis Cup and whatnot, we allow ourselves to think outside the box, so to speak. So as we were thinking outside the box, we came up with two methodologies that seemed no one else was doing, and we applied them to this endeavor, which is behavioral analysis, like the FBI identifies serial killers. We came up with that because my wife and I like to watch Criminal Minds at night back in the day, and the show had a kind of, well, here's what's interesting. Aside, I look at, I'm kind of an interesting guy. I look at things differently, and what I see a lot of times is I see behind the show, what's happening behind the scenes. So like an event happens, there's the clues, and then there's like the solution at the end, and you kind of, you can almost like script all these little shows, but basically you can see what they're doing is they're trying to profile what this suspect might do. So we kind of did that, the same thing with the AI. And we said, okay, well, what do breakouts or asset appreciations, what do they look like? And we came up with a bunch of scenarios, and we realized, well, they look in lots of different ways. Number one, you can have a stock that breaks out and then keeps going, right? Then you can have a stock that breaks out, pulls all the way back, consolidates, but then starts to go. Mm-hmm. And then all the different things in between. And of course, you can basically define that stuff mathematically. So we started to divide that up, and we created approximately like 60 scenarios, some of them long, some of them short, okay? And we call those our algorithms, which define different ways that stocks move. So we have 60 descriptions in which way stocks move, and I kind of gave you the highlight. And again, it's the same thing on the downside. You can break down, you can reverse, etc., consolidation, etc., all this stuff. And then we said, all right, computer, well, now that you know what to do, now that like you're a behavioral analyst, well, how are you going to actually figure out what's working? So then we again approached pop culture as the solution, and we went with the MIT card counting solution for Breaking Vegas. Really liked the book. Ben Messer.
I'm a big fan of what's his name?
I think it's Ben Mesrick I think that's his name. So
yeah, he wrote the book, but it was on who was the guy who?
It was a movie.
Yeah. Kevin
So
Spacey.
imagine Matt, we said, okay, if we were a bunch of card counters, how would we do, excuse me, how would we do it with the stock market? So we said, well, what differentiates us from everyone else is our database. We keep track of every trade for every stock on every single time frame. So every single trade, we have this massive, massive database that we've been keeping for 13 years.
U.S. stocks only still, Dan?
Stocks, right now, we're about to add futures and crypto.
Love it.
And we have options data, but not specific.
No, but still, and just U.S.-based stocks today, not
Canadian too.
And Canadian, okay. But that's a big world. That's a big world.
Oh, big world. I mean, we have the processing power of Twitter. Most people don't know that. We can do the same kind of processing that Twitter can, and they're like an infinity larger than we are. Excuse me. So anyways, back to the card counting. So at night, our AI goes through the market, goes through these 60 algorithms that we have, and creates kind of like a combine where the algorithms compete to play with one another to manage the assets the next morning. So after the market finishes today, these 60 algos will take in today's data, learn from it, combine it with what it already knows for the last 3 months. We kind of keep it on a quarterly basis. By the way, here's something else. All this like 20 years bullshit, pointless.
Yeah.
You just don't need to be going 20 years. There's no system that's going to be doing anything for 20 years. On the contrary, systems have to constantly change. That's success.
I've been, so, just again, most people know, but I've been at this game for 28 years. I trade much differently today than I did when I started, and I've been successful every year, pretty much every month, of that time. But I do, and you have to adapt. Now, that doesn't mean your process kind of has to, to go through to find ways to behave, but you're always changing. Absolutely. And for anybody that thinks you can just set it and forget it, to your point, Dan, it's not feasible. So it's great to hear that TradeIdeas is not like, it's not a one and done algo that you're talking about. This thing is always evolving. It's always learning, right?
The algos are rewriting them. Yeah. So this is where the exciting, innovative technological stuff comes in. You probably heard about this term called machine learning.
Yep.
Right. So at night when the market closes, we don't have to do anything. The software goes in, takes all these trades, knows how to study them, knows how to parse like what's good, what's bad. Then it knows how to self-adjust to reflect what it learned. And then tomorrow it ranks itself, kicks out the guy. All right, guys, you didn't make the team, and here's like the 6 that we have.
And this is important. Hey, Dan, I want to pause you for a second because this is so important. I think the hardest thing about trading is what do I trade? How do I establish risk levels? And if I can't do that, I shouldn't trade, right? If I can't tell you where I'm wrong, I shouldn't be trading. So what you're talking about here is really, as a guy who used to pour through 2,000 charts to get to the 200 that were active, to then get the 20 that might be of interest, and then find 1 or 2 each day that were really the most interesting, right? It's that's hard to do. And to your point, I was good at going through this data. So to have a tool and I use TradeIdeas, with David, and a broker of mine that was one of the first guys creating, and using this type of technology back in 2003. I used TradeIdeas.
We've been around
right?
Forever. We're so old.
So I want people to know I'm definitely a user. I'm a fan. I don't trade stocks today, so I'm excited that you're finally going to be adding futures and crypto, because that is where I spend my time today, because less is more in my world. I don't want 6,000 names. But for most people that have those 6,000 names, there's great opportunities. So to refine and refine and refine to find those best 6 nuggets that then you, the trader, can determine is hugely beneficial. hugely. And it comes back to that
I'll,
freedom and liberty that we're talking about.
let me tell you something else. I would wager to bet that if you saw what we're doing now on the visual side, and again, I mean, I think it'd be worth your while to retake a look, because we've kind of, again, we try to do it creatively. And there are some good products out there, but again, I think we're innovating at a different level. And what we've done is we kind of blended. So our AI is sort of like the Google Navigate, where you say, okay, well, where do you want to go? Say, well, here's the directions to profit, right? But that's just, okay, the directions. But visually on a chart, we also help people identify all the levels. Like the AI has its own price line, and the profit target has its own price line. And then what you have is a red area for stop. So we visually represent the proper behavior. So
Which
that you're less likely.
I'm totally that type of trader. I've always been a visual trader, Dan. So that's awesome.
I mean, I think we have we have the potential to like take over in a Bloomberg sort of way. And I know that sounds like being very boastful, but again, I've been around this game for so long, and of course, a lot of it's totally random, which nobody can predict. But the data that we have is really unique, and I think here's the beauty of why this podcast to me is so exciting. Hopefully, I'll be able to get it from you and show my granddaughters or something and say, look, before Daddy was a billionaire. No, I'm just joking. But it is that exciting. You know, because people weren't, here's the funny thing that people don't know about us. So in the 90s, we were the it kids. We were the 29-year-old CEOs. We were funded by a gigantic venture capital firm. They were like, Dan, when you're going to take your company public, we're going to get this yacht. We're going to cruise around the Mediterranean, which, by the way, sounds great to a 29-year-old. I'm like, hell yeah. About to get my own private jet. And then 9/11 happened. Right. And the dot-com bubble burst, and the private jet scenario faded so fast that I joke around where I went from a brand new 911 Porsche to a Sector 9 skateboard. You grow some short and curlies when you have to do that, and you just got married, et cetera, et cetera. And through that.
So talk about that a little bit, because, I always like to tell people, success is never overnight. I don't, if it is, and you admit that you're lucky, that's one thing. But most people, they have great ideas, and they just, they get going and they fizzle, and then they come back. And can you sustain during that decade or so of time that you still believe in your truth and your walk and your philosophies, right? How did you make it through those? Talk a little bit about that struggle.
Voltaire's Candide, if anybody's a literature fan. I'm the eternal optimist. I never believed that we could do it. Like when we got, the wind. When we were funded so a couple of things just for entertainment value. So I was at the office where Philip Berber developed CyberTrader, and we were giving him tons of feedback and really helped.
I love CyberTrader, by the way.
Yeah, so that was that design came from our trading form. He stole a lot from the Watcher, which was out on the East Coast, from the island guys. But we gave a lot of feedback for that, and it was during those days. And when he coup d'etat the whole block trading situation, I don't know if you remember what happened, but basically it was the whole lesson of how to do proper contracts and what is software and what is not software. Like they had signed this contract with him, but only for version 1. And when he changed to version 2, that was not part of the contract because the lawyers didn't know what they were doing. It was just this whole disaster. And I realized, wow, people who make software have incredible power.
Yeah.
And then he formed the broker-dealer and completely wiped out, block trading, became the broker, and Schwab was so nervous that they bought him out for $500 million. Arguably one of the best trades in fintech ever. Philip Berber just slid in, took a $500 million and out.
Bravo.
And I was on his heels, but in a different way. We were like, okay, let's do the same thing that kind of Phil did on the retail side, but let's go where the institutions are because there's more money. So we were like, let's do that. Let's bring the day trading tools, like all the level 2 and the things that we did, you know, to get the volume,
Yep.
and bring it to the hedge funds so they could do it. And the idea was that that company was going to compete with Ready Plus.
Right.
It was really taking a lot of market share in the hedge fund at the time. It was called Future Trade. And again, we were the it kids. And when that shit all went crazy and you know, we realized that it wasn't going to work, basically myself and all the top guys, the initial founders, except for David Afariat, who joined us a year later, we left that company, formed TradeIdeas, and that's what we call ourselves, the kids with the $50 million education. You know, we learned exactly what not to do from that company, met all the big players, billion-dollar hedge fund guys. We have so many funny stories about shit you would never even believe.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that real-time P&L? I don't want to see that shit. That makes me nervous.
Exactly.
Hi, how much do you manage? It's 10 billion.
Yeah.
Well, all right. But again, so all of that knowledge is built inside of TradeIdeas. Like all those lessons learned from 1996 to 2017, we never, ever, ever gave up.
Right.
And so that's what you have here. We're not like a startup. We're
and even Tesla and you know, that's what the people don't realize. Oh, you know, when I tell my son Tesla did PayPal, he's like, he did? And I'm like, yeah. Like he's like, you know, and he's 18, so he doesn't have any scope of time. So I would say, you know, when did you guys really go hockey stick? Because that's happened in the last couple of years.
That's a great question, and also a great story. It could be a podcast in and of itself. But basically, we learned. So this is where this whole, if it wasn't for this happening, you would never see what's happening now. But in essence, here's what we were primarily, so when we got into business in 2003, you know, we launched just the web-based version of our product, and we of course only catered to individuals because that's all you can do.
Yep.
You know, you don't have anything else. Then David joined us, and he helped us close Scottrade, and then after that, helped us close E-Trade. And when we started making the enterprise money, we realized, well, man, you know, I like getting one trade for like, you know, a lot of money than trying to get $45 or whatever from 1,000 people. It seemed like, you know, the path of least resistance is go to the enterprise. And we did that. We closed deals, and we used our subscription business as really R&D, free R&D, and then use the enterprise business for just, you know, lifestyle and the company. And that lasted from like 2006 to 2011, kind of a while. Then in 2011, something crazy happened. There was an internal coup d'etat, Game of Thrones style, inside of Scottrade.
Really?
Yes, the stuff that you don't learn about in business school, which again goes back to our whole $50 million education. Yep. Again, we saw some of that early, but then kind of you forget the lesson. But then all of a sudden, you realize that you're making like, you know, over $1 million, and this $1 million becomes an expense on a marketing person's desk. Ruh-roh. Welcome to the term known as concentration risk. So in 2015, we were like, okay, guys, look what happened with Scottrade. If that stuff happens with E-Trade, you could basically be screwing your own business.
Yeah, you're shuttered.
So we got to turn that around. I said, why aren't we growing our subscription business? And we really dug into ourselves, and we said, why is that? And we basically came out with the fact that we were spending too much time giving people the ability to configure stuff, like all the abilities to set things up themselves.
Custom, right? Yeah.
Right. Versus using our own expertise to create people more of a media product, which is, again, right now you see we are more on the Netflix side of the spectrum. We have a channel bar. We have channels that people can just select with a mouse, including the AI channel. So we are much more like that versus some sort of, you know, Bloomberg where you're doing 700 keystrokes to, you know, check your email.
Yeah. Believe
And that's where we went. We said, listen, the AI, really what's beautiful about the AI is that the AI is an extension of what all of us do by hand, but can't. Given a set of circumstances, you would do most likely like 80% of what the AI is doing.
right.
You're going to, but assuming that, let's say you agree on the in, right?
Yeah.
The way your management's going to be is probably right around 80%. And that's our whole point. We're like, look, you can't get it perfect for everyone, but the truth of the matter is the primary, it's like, imagine this. Let's say you're playing golf, but instead of with your hack buddy who's getting wasted, you're playing with Tiger Woods.
Right.
The idea is that hopefully that would make you play better because
Well,
you're
you do.
seeing.
I mean, I can speak to that. I've played. At best, I've been down to 4 or 5 handicap. Most of the time, I'm around a 10, just because I don't play enough.
I'm a 12, and I know, and like how hard it is to go from like a 12 to a 4. I mean, come on, that's like 4 lifetimes.
Well, and honestly, those were, to your point. I think it probably took me 4 or 5 years to get down there, and I was playing anywhere from 50 to 100 rounds a year.
Yeah, which is a lot.
It's a lot, and I kind of burned out because I was like, because I was a field player. I'm not a practice player. I don't like to go out and hit balls for the sake of hitting balls. A lot of people do. I like to play. But to your point, 80% of, I can teach you most of the golf game, but the nuance, like you're saying, the other 20%, I'm going to learn from already having that hard work done for me, right? The basis of the swing, the putting stroke, how to chip in a normal, how to stand with your feet, where, if the ground is tilted, all those things are set for you, because there's certain things you have to do. And this is what you're saying. So you've taken that out of, the 80%. So then I can tinker with the 20% that TradeIdeas offers me still to differentiate myself as a trader and as a market participant. And here's the beauty. I can tell you, Dan, exactly what I do, and I teach people, and you can tell me exactly what you do, and I'll use what you do differently, and you'll use what I use differently.
Absolutely. Everyone's got their own DNA to it, and that DNA is commensurate with your account size, with time of day, with your marriage.
Yeah, what your time frame is, how often you want to play, Exactly.
Did you get into a car accident when you were 6 years old? I mean, you dragged the whole kit and caboodle with you. Yep. As you know. And the beauty is the AI, what we're trying to do is we're saying, listen, guys, we can have the computer now do things that you just couldn't do. The AI goes through approximately up to 1 million simulations a night. So it does 1 million practice trades, learns, puts the statistics, right? And it's ready to take its bar exam the next day.
Yeah.
And that's what it's basically doing.
So tell me what's exciting, give me the most exciting things that, are happening, that are current, and then what's coming down the pike as far as.
We like the whole notion of, going into the crypto. We like the cryptocurrency world, the future.
What do you like? What do you like about it? I'm curious, from your standpoint.
Okay, I am a very early adopter. Myself and my buddy Jamie, we mined in 2011. So I have 30 coins, and he has 20 at price of 0.
It's crazy.
So we're very, very big advocates and fans of the crypto space. Yeah. I love, again, the notion of decentralized currency goes with the decentralized research. Our computer is scouring through these thousands of stocks, right? Trying to identify which one of them is behaving in this way that stocks that accelerate or decelerate behave. Going back to that hard counting and then profiling, those two things. And because we know that nobody in the real world speculates that way, we feel like we're so far ahead.
Yeah.
We are so far ahead of everybody else.
Well, and the reason, honestly, if you ask me, so I definitely could have bought coins in 2008, 7, 9, 10, but I wasn't that smart. I've been aware of it.
It's lucky. You know what it is? Jamie and I, we got high one night and we're like, this Bitcoin stuff looks good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how much does it cost? Let's buy 2. Well, this is, again, we were, by the way, because we were succeeding at TradeIdeas in 2010, was the year before our concentration risk coup d'etat.
Yeah.
We were like, again, that was like, even though it's been 7 years, in 2010, we were also like, we were thinking we were about to explode, and now every institution is going to have us. So I've been here like this excited before, but even though this is much better than previously, 2010 was like, hell yeah, what's this Bitcoin bullshit? All right, let's go mine some of that crap.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You were somewhat sowing your wild oats, and it was the right time.
Right. It fit the profile of what I pretend to be, this sophisticated, a fintech person, something or other.
Well, but
like, honey, that's why I play on TV.
Exactly. So, but here's what I like about it as a trader, just from a trading perspective. Out of anything out there, like I'm always looking for. So we talked a little bit about people behave kind of similar, not always consistently, but most of the time. As my good friend Dr. Galvin always says, he's like, hey, if you're an asshole, just be consistent and always be an asshole. It's kind of like Larry David, right? He's hilarious because he's Larry David, and you expect him to do what he does. He's an asshole.
Well, it's the same way why Trump works.
Right.
He's consistent.
He's totally consistent. And the thing that I love about Bitcoin as a trader, Dan, is it is the most honest participant out there in all markets today, because it doesn't have an OPEC, it doesn't have an FOMC.
So that's the same reason why I'm very excited with it. And let me tell you, so if we were going to say what would be the last thing that I'm going to conclude on and get you super excited about, right? I'll tell you it'd be this. So you're saying, what's the future about what we're doing? Where am I seeing, aside from, I already said, we're so far ahead, but let me tell you where the future is going. So blockchain is this ledger, as you know, the authenticity ledger, et cetera. And that's how the foundation upon which Bitcoin is built. Right. Well, we're going to do something similar using the blockchain technology, but for people running simulations. All the simulations right now are run in our server farm, and of course we are limited by the capacity of how many servers we have. But literally, when we go the blockchain route, where every kind of alpha mining is what we would call it, where a person lends their CPUs to the mining of probabilities for the AI. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's very simple, and every run is authenticated, so you can't, again, the same blockchain technology, but just distribute it out. And what we'll have is a supercomputer that then helps people really find where outsized returns are. And again, it's pure. You can't kill it.
Just so people know, so you talked about this, and the thing, like I don't automate my trading, but I do automate big pieces of my research. And what I like to do is, if I'm looking at 40 different futures and currency products, which is kind of my world today, I basically will rank those on different time frames and their volatility, current volatility versus, not only yesterday, but a month ago. So I'm looking for increases, obviously, in volatility, where opportunities then present themselves as a trader, because things that become very tight as a trader, we don't like that, right? And what we want is we want expansion all the time. And the great thing about TradeIdeas and stocks is, let's say you have 6,000 US stocks. I'm just throwing out a number. I know it's not that high anymore, but there's a lot of stocks to go through, and you want to find the most liquid, transparent, and volatile things to trade. Therefore, gives you the best opportunities to take a bite, right? As you said, we're just trying to come in, take anywhere from a nibble to as piggish as you want to be without being too piggish, right? You're trying to take some meat out.
Here's something interesting, Matt. And again, this is why I'm going to say you might want to reconsider possibly some of the things on the equity side, because again, the research is changing. Again, if you look at DRNA, what you'll notice is a move from approximately 5 to right around 10 in 2 months.
Yeah,
100%. And the profile is, look at today, it's trading almost like 3 times its normal volume and only 390,000 shares. So that's actually perfect for the individual investor and
Right.
not great for the big hedge funds because they all want that super liquidity, the bond type liquidity, which it doesn't exist in outsized returns because
Right.
you can't wakeboard behind a cruise ship.
And to your point, I would say that I can take advantage of that situation as, you know, a
Perfect.
28-year veteran because I know what is normal and not normal behavior. And your AI can help those that don't have the 28 years have that knowledge without having to have had 28 years. And that's important to know.
Well, and let's go back to golf. It goes back to the same thing. Like Tiger Woods also has a coach, and so does a beginner.
Yep.
And this is the same. And the reason is fundamentals.
Yep.
You always want to be watching your phone. So this is basically, again, reiterating what we had said before. The TradeIdeas AI, the way, aside from the fact that it'll find things that will most likely be way better than the average person tries to guess at it.
Yep.
The way it manages will be the proper fundamental way, much like in golf, you know, square, two, weight, shift, you know, inside, out versus over the top.
Unless you're Jim Furyk and you're just a freak.
And there are, and again, but those people already don't have to worry about
That's
it.
what I'm saying. Right. You're born that way. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So we are giving, I joke about it with because we're friends, my friends and I torture ourselves on the golf course. We say, you know, imagine you get to the club and in your cart, you've got Iron Byron, except he's a robot and he's playing for you.
Right.
You know, wind's still going to affect old Iron, but he's going to hit the shit out of that ball.
Well, you know, there's a reason why, Dan, that we're not hitting persimmon woods and blades anymore. You know, it's just there's no need to with technology. It's been accepted that you can use this titanium and better shafting scenarios. So why wouldn't you use these better, you know, technologies? It's no different than why wouldn't.
But in stock analysis,
why wouldn't
because there's no Tiger Woods and
yeah.
there's no NBA and there's no whatever, you've got these like insiders all like hiding like, yeah. What do we bend? What do we bend? Bloomberg, 2 screens, black and yellow, black and yellow. They have no idea what could be popular. Then you got guys like Robinhood. They're like, I know the problem. The car door is locked. We got to create a really good door handle for this car. Yeah. Not gasoline. Who cares about that shit? Look at this key. It's free.
Yeah.
People.
It's so crazy.
But again, but that goes back to the opportunity that's at hand for individuals who get information from different sources, who broaden their eyes. You know, I talk a lot about eyes wide shut. That's the beauty about what we do, what we see here. When you have stocks like DRNA or CHFS, when you trade, your eyes become open because you see a little bit of how the world really works, you know, how everything affects everything. You know, again, it's a little bit more of the real world. It makes you all the things, humble, grateful, and ultimately more educated because you're seeing what's actually happening versus what other people are telling you, which is, again, a better way to live your life.
Absolutely. And it's all about that freedom. And I think, to your point, I'm a big believer in lifetime learning. I mean, we're all here, in my opinion. I don't care what your religious beliefs or philosophical beliefs. If you're not learning, you shouldn't, you know, you're gonna have to do another round, I guess.
That's why I make it a point to judge the Cannabis Cup. Always keep the brain fresh and refreshed. You know, you got to think in different ways.
So I'm super excited about what you're doing at TradeIdeas. I really am.
Well, Matt, we're going to get you reacquainted with the software. I want to have one of my guys take you on kind of like the new tour, because I think you'll find some reasons to really at least maybe even keep it up. Like, what is this? Because what happens is people are like, wait a minute, did I just see 900 basis points fly by? That's what I've heard, like somebody on the institutional space, like, wait a minute. Is that 900 basis points?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some, and I think we're coming.
You know what one guy said? You're gonna love this. He's like, well, then maybe I'll just use percent instead. No need to use basis points when percents work, guys.
Right. I think, listen, like I said, I've used some really, and I'll talk to you a little bit about it offline, but I think you could help me streamline some of my tools. I know you can. Like I'm so tired of, I don't want to learn how to program, but I want you to program a couple of data points.
Matt, we'll free your mind. Get ready to get your mind free. Because one of the reasons is our AI is we're about to release it on the web, so that's even easier. You know, no setup, no downloads. Like in literally 1 or 2 days, there's going to be a web-based version, which is really compatible completely with the C# version, which you can use on your iPad, on your iPhone.
Perfect.
So that's what we'll do.
Perfect.
Look it up.
So, Dan, thanks for coming on today. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. I know you're, you want to get out there on your. Hey, do you have a golf board?
I have a one wheel, which is kind of like a golf board. I'm all into that crazy stuff. My wife's gonna kill me.
You should get your club. You know, the golf boards are made here in Bend. You should get your club to bring those in.
Well, you know, I'm a big fan of Bend, Oregon, and I've skied there. So if I come out, we'll hook up.
Yeah, no, I'll hook you up because, you know, Tethrow is where they kind of started the golf board. Tethrow was built by David McClay Kidd, who built Bandon Dunes, if you don't know.
Okay, wow, cool.
And he also he built Bandon because he was the guy they hired to redo St. Andrews.
Ah, got it. Okay, wow.
So he's a Scot, and he is a Scot, but he makes his home now in Bend.
Okay, sweet. So
we'll definitely turn you on.
Listen, once again, I'm grateful for having me on. Hopefully lots of people watch and make some
so you know, guys, go to it's trade-ideas.com, and if you /OMT, I am an affiliate. I have used the product. I was a fan when I was trading stocks every day. If you're trading stocks, I highly recommend this is a must tool in your bag. I really do. I mean, it's and who knows, maybe I'll start paying more taxes and trading more stocks. Dan.
To pay more taxes, it's always good, right?
Yeah.
Not really. All right, Matt, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and you take care.
Okay, thanks, man.